glimpses of a harrowing voyage. I believe my mind has forced me to forget this time as a means to heal. All this because another man coveted my father's wealth. It was then I learned the wickedness of men, all men, and the savagery that dwells in the hearts of our race. Mine is not a story of revenge. No, the man who killed my father was himself slain before I grew my first beard, or so I heard in my travels. Such is the lot of a Dane. Blood feuds fuel constant fighting that robs families of their kin, of their wealth. And in my view this has prevented the Danes from rising as rivals to the Franks. Knowing this, I decided early on to avoid entangling myself in the fray of the politics of the North. Mine is a story of a boy who was a slave, who became a warlord, and who helped topple an empire. This is the story of how I betook myself, a Viking, took what I desired by my own 2 hands, and how I came to earn the reputation of Scourge of the Somme and Loire. My story begins when my captors sold me to a man named Hagar. He lived on a faraway island called Ireland, where the trees and grass and shrubs are the greenest of any green any man has ever seen. Rain pours over the countryside in near perpetuity. At first I believed the rain would pass, which it did once or twice in the summer when I lived there, but never for long. It is how I remember it, at least, and I have since met an Irishman or 2 who have laughed with me for describing their homeland in such a manner. The ship that carried me arrived at Hagar's longphort on a grey afternoon. A small party of warriors interrogated the captain before allowing the vessel to tie off. The longphort was a lengthy open pier extending out from a thatch-roofed dock that housed Hagar's ships. The poles holding the dock together had barnacles and mussels growing on them up to where the water reached high tide. We had arrived at low tide, so the crew moored the ship as close to the dock as they could, roped it to the poles, and jumped into the shallows below. They sloshed their way through the knee-deep muddy water, one of them with me thrown over his shoulder, all the way to the rocky shoreline. Hagar's village was also a fort. He had erected a wooden wall the height of 3 men that surrounded the long houses, with 2 open-air towers to keep watch over the surrounding land. To the east the towers looked over the coast, the ocean, and the horizon, and in the west they overlooked a thick, lush, untouched wilderness of oak, aspen, and ash. Farmland surrounded the walls of the fort, split into uneven plots by loose wattle fencing. Slaves laboured from dawn until dusk during the harvest. Within the fort there were 5 long houses, each built in a different direction to form a semicircle that faced north. The long-house walls were made of turf cut into thick, sturdy pieces, stacked at breast height beneath a low thatched roof. The largest of these, Hagar's Hall, is where my captors took me on the first day. I cannot remember what was said, nor the names of the men who had brought me to that place, but I remember what they sold to Hagar. They had not merely carried slaves across the sea, but also many of my family's belongings, including my father's sword. When Hagar girded it, I vowed that I would one day take it back from him. For the first few years I lived in Ireland, I saw little of the outdoors. All of Hagar's slaves lived in the same long house on the easternmost edge of the village. Most of them ate and slept there, and not much else. During the day the older slaves left the long-house to toil wherever their masters bade them. Many children lived in the slave-house, and many of them were even younger than I. While the grown-ups worked, the children remained confined to a room on the far side of the chamber, watched over by an Irish woman named Anner, with long black hair and deep green eyes. She was a wretched soul who, in the presence of others, appeared loving and nurturing, but in their absence abused and neglected the children. She spent her days away from the long house and left the children to cry.